Hello, friends. My name's Tami Simon, and I'm the founder of Sounds True, and I want to welcome you to the Sounds True podcast, Insights at the Edge. I also want to take a moment to introduce you to Sounds True's new membership community and digital platform. It's called Sounds True One. Sounds True One features original, premium, transformational docuseries, community events, classes to start your day and relax in the evening, special weekly live shows, including a video version of Insights at the Edge with an after-show community question and answer session with featured guests. I hope you'll come join us, explore, come have fun with us, and connect with others. You can learn more at join.soundstrue.com. I also want to take a moment and introduce you to the Sounds True Foundation, our nonprofit that creates equitable access to transformational tools and teachings. You can learn more at soundstruefoundation.org. And in advance, thank you for your support. In this episode of Insights at the Edge, my guest is Zulma Reyo. Zulma Reyo is a spiritual teacher, author, visionary, and founder of the Zulma Reyo School of Consciousness. Born in Puerto Rico and now 82 years of age, Zulma Reyo has been teaching for more than 5 decades and has developed a system of training she calls Inner Alchemy, and she's written a book with that title, Inner Alchemy, The Path of Mastery. She's also written a new book that's described as a culmination of her life's work, in which we are guided in how to both prepare for physical death and go through the transformative journey of what she calls ego death while we're still alive. And that's what we'll be talking about. Her new book is called Emergence of Consciousness, Death of the Ego. Zulma Reyo, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Tami.
Here at the beginning, and by way of introduction, if you could share a bit more about the family from which you come. And I hear that it's a family of Transmediums, and I'd love to know more about that.
Well, I don't think they'd like to be introduced as that, but mediumism is very popular in the Caribbean. And my family has always been in service. So their idea of service was to lend themselves to act as mediators between the dying or the dead, and there's a group of people that work out of the body. They're like spirit guides, guiding people after death to what is happening. And this is a subject that was surrounding me all my life, which is why this latest book, I should say, is so important and so real for me. I, as a child, sat there and saw them. I also had, you could say, etheric sight when I was little, so I could actually see what was happening. And they would set themselves up as mediums. And one of the primary mediums was my mother. And she would serve as the embodiment of somebody who was in distress or looking for help. And then there would be a medium who would talk to these people and guide them, ask them questions, pretty much like a therapist would today, while the rest of us just held silence. I was pretty freaked out about this. I'm talking about it naturally now. But in the beginning, when I was little, I was very much affected by my mother. Her transformation was total. I mean, it's the same body, but the spirit and her sometimes her voice. There was a nun that she used to embody. She wasn't in distress. She was one of the guides from the other side, they're called. She would start singing the soprano, and so on and so forth. We would do this almost every Sunday. There were aunts and uncles who would also serve as mediums. And this was pretty much acknowledged and accepted in our society. In Puerto Rico, it still is. And in my family.
Now, you said you had etheric sight even as a young person. What were you seeing when these sessions were taking place?
My sight wasn't in the sessions itself. It was in my daily life. I had guides, and my life wasn't so easy. I had difficult moments, I guess more than the ordinary child, also because I grew up between the United States and Puerto Rico, between two cultures. And my parents were always traveling. So when I was alone or when I prayed, I saw my two guides, my angels. And when things were difficult, I would see shadows or shadowy figures, which would scare me. But then my angels or my guides would come and they would protect me. Until there was one moment, I was already like 13 or so, I said, please, I don't want to see anything. Please, God, oh, please. And the sight was removed from me until later on when I started to work again. But I always had the, what you call sensitivity. I know when energies change. I know when something is good or light. I know when something is heavy, oppressive. And to this day, now I've regained it fully. I can tell people on two levels, their personality and what their spirit soul self is. And that is always beautiful. But there's always such a disconnection, or most of the time, there's such a disconnection between what people really are and what they appear or they think they are in the flesh, which is one of the reasons this school exists, to help connect people with that reality.
This is one of the things I'm really curious about, is the personality and the soul, and what it means for the personality to become transparent to the soul. And when you see that, what does that look like, that transparency? And then, of course, what creates that?
That's a joyous sight to see, Tami, because you get the best of the personality. I mean, you don't lose when you clear what we call in the school the egoism of the personality from the ego, which is the identity that you've chosen and through which you express yourself, includes gender, includes race, includes your cultural associations, your education, your tastes. All of this remains, but the egoism is removed. And so this person now knows that they are not the body, they are not the personality, they are the I am, that which resides inside in the core of your being. I'm pointing to the heart, or in your highest self, pointing in the vertical alignment. And that is at the disposal. Your personality is intuitive enough. It has cleared out the blockage of projections, of beliefs, of desires, and not that we don't have them, but the compulsive, illusory ones, the fantasies, and are able to listen to what you really are seeing and act as a mediator for your life lesson, for your life's calling. But this is a lot of work. This is what we do here, the beginning stages anyway.
One of the things I'm curious about, Zulma, in your own experience, is if you've had moments of what you could call, like, these are ego death experiences where there's been a huge clearing out, or if it's been a gradual process of doing inner work, or if there have been some breakthrough moments, and if so, what were those?
Well, we can't say it is complete. It is up to the individual to keep working. This is unending. So let's say the average person who doesn't come to our school, who doesn't go to anybody actually, but life lessons have been met deeply and humbly, keeps growing on themselves. Life is a preparation for that ultimate transition, that return home, let's say, for the soul to return back with all the lessons it has accumulated. Now, this transition isn't always isn't ever from one moment to the other. In the school, we prepare people, and especially through this book, I hope the reader also gets the inspiration, because this can be done. Very, very, very difficult to do on your own, but it could be done by some rare individuals who have the motivation and the support of their environment enough. They can begin to look at themselves, to study themselves, what they believe to be themselves, to look at themselves with an objectivity and a sympathy at the same time. Because most people look at themselves with a critical mind, a negative mind. I don't want this or I want that. To go through that clearing process and to go through your entire life and to check it and what are the points that need, let's say, redemption. And those points would be the most emotional, darkest experiences in your life, the ones that we put at the bottom of the, underneath the carpet, bury it, try to forget about it and do our best to carry on. These leave not only scars, they leave residues. And this is what we do here. We open up the first year. It's a school of consciousness, but the first year, the first couple of years, I would say, is basically not that it ends there. As I said, it's a lifelong process. It's basically a clearance. It's looking back. For example, we just had a cohort that began last week. Fantastic cohort, by the way. And we begin with the 3 energy bodies of the personality: the physical, the emotional, and the mental. They never act alone. They always act together, but we separate them to begin to acquire sensitivity as to what we do at each level, that focus of consciousness, which is the divine focus, the I am, but it is inside of me and it commands my personality. I think I'm my personality. So I begin observing that. I've got to detach or separate my subjective history from a sensation that I have in my innermost self of being separate from my personality. That voice, that flame, that relief, like the angelic presence that every child knows, and many grown-ups do also. That is what is the true voice of my soul. But it takes a while for me to disengage from my radio, from the programming that I myself have set, that the world has imposed upon me as beliefs, as, social adaptation. And I begin to listen to that voice. And so that voice is what's going to tell me, it's what's going to create guilt in me when I haven't acted according to my innermost self, which is always, always love. Not this fluffy love, but the love that is intelligent, that is profound, that is compassionate, that is humble. And the more I listen to that, the more I correct myself. I know, but I don't correct myself with a whip. We don't do that here, because that would be counterproductive. We do it by deviating the attention from the personality and giving it more to that inner self. So as time progresses, we deactivate this and listen more to this and begin to laugh at what this little one here does. Because it's always takes the center of attention. It's always important. The world revolves around me. The world is looking at me, criticizing me, or, calling my great values or whatever it is. So that's the process. And I have met people, and I know that it is possible to do this journey on your own, but very difficult. Very, very, very difficult. Here you have the support of a sangha. You have the support of a group that becomes more family to you than your own blood family, because everybody's going through the same thing. And besides, everybody's come together for the same purpose. We know that we want to change this world. We know that we want to make a difference in this world. And that difference begins by me, by changing myself, by recognizing the humanity, the fraternity of humanity, etc.
So I appreciate your explanation of the process and the inner work and the separating of the soul I am from these three different mental, physical, emotional bodies and patterns that obscure us. But I'm still curious, Zulma, in your own evolutionary process, if there were what you might have called breakthrough moments that really helped you disidentify the personality from the soul and what happened. Because often there are, sometimes there aren't, but when there are in someone's journey, I find it instructive. So that's what I'm curious about.
You mean my own experiences?
Yes.
Okay, I was talking to you about the students.
Wait, I'm interested in both, so I appreciate that.
Well, how many hours do we have?
But particularly around this, I guess I would say ego death. In your life, did you have like, oh, that was the period of time or the moment when I knew what ego death meant? And I say that because also I think there's a lot of confusion about that. Somebody goes through a hard time and they think, oh, that was my ego death. But was it really an ego death, or it was just a, hard period of their life that crushed them a little bit? But really?
No, I would call ego death when you, or approximating it, when you are humbled to such a point that you realize, I had a moment with my dog the night before last when I just went to say goodnight and blessed it as I usually do and thank her for being in my life and inspiring me. She's just a little heart with fur on it, and as most animals are. And I started crying, and I was so grateful for existence, for having this little animal in my life. Now that is a moment of, there was no ego there. There was just this dog who became me and I became the dog, and it was love. There have been periods when my son was born and I saw him and I said, oh my God, can I do this? Can I take care of this beautiful life stream? This innocent, this gorgeous perfection in front of me. Me who am, whatever, all my faults. And at that moment, it was like there was a calling, such a deep calling. And I guess at that moment, I really felt myself, capital S, in contrast with my little self or my personality. I saw beyond the personality into this vastness of divinity, which is the child, and myself. And it was possible to be there. I have been the vessel for this. Why? How? How is this possible? And a lot of my this is my mise en scène. This is when I started really working after I had had my child, really working on myself seriously. Up to then, I had been participating, when I was a child with my family, always reading a lot. But here's when I really just put my sleeves up and said, okay, let's go for it. I have to clean myself up to raise this child. And that's what's inside everybody. And then I began to see it. It's not just the baby. It's in you. It's in everybody I see. There is this purity. And in the beginning, it was just like, I would only see the purity then in people. And I wouldn't see their personality. I was so fascinated by it. And then you begin to see both. And you begin to say, hey, whoa, wait a minute. I can't be an idiot. Because if I'm going to see that beauty and I'm going to be wide open, I'm going to be taken in, I'm going to be betrayed, which I was, because you don't expect what the personality produces, and it's not pretty. So it's like really getting training in the jungle. So then it was like, let's do therapy, training in the jungle. Let me go back over I went into primal therapy. Let me go back over my life, the difficult moments, the ugliness, the fear, the pain. The empathy was always there, but it was almost like, oh, it hurts so much. I want to do something about it. So it shuts up, It wasn't this, I'm here for you completely, which we can evolve to be for another person. And that's what saves them. That's what brings them out. That's what brings the light and allows their pain to come up. There is no way we are going to annihilate the pain, eliminate the pain in another person unless it is experienced. And this is what people still don't know. You can justify it, do a mantra. You can do a trick, like painting it over, doing something else, replacing something which is not so pretty with something which is beautiful. It doesn't work. This underlayer is always there. So at some point, the honest person is humble enough to face themselves either with another or to go back and look at that with the eyes and the heart of the spirit, soul, self, which means embracing it, not castigating themselves, not forcing themselves to be different, and using that pain and that experience, eventually all of that, you embrace all of that to help others, to understand and help others. And you don't have to be a therapist for that. You just have to be a living person.
In the Emergence of Consciousness, there's a section dedicated to writing farewell letters to people in your life, to people in your family, to people you've had difficult experiences with, and even from presence itself to your personality. And I thought this was very interesting. And from your personality to your soul. Very interesting. And you describe in the book how this letter writing is a core technique that you use in the School of Consciousness. And I also get that this is hard for someone to do on their own. So I really get that. And yet, here we are, we're reaching people in different pockets of the world, many of whom will not make it to the School of Consciousness, most of whom won't, and may not have an opportunity to do this except on their own and with a friend. And I'm curious if you could give us some insight into how we could explore this process of writing a farewell letter to some difficult part of our life as we prepare for our own saying goodbye eventually to everyone and everything.
It was difficult writing that chapter or explaining it because it is a very delicate process. It isn't just writing the words. You have to be in the posture, in the humble posture of seeing yourself. And before that process happens, we have a preparation. So it's like I'm writing, let's say, to my father, to my mother. And my mother is this little old lady. She's got Alzheimer's, or maybe she doesn't, but she's very ill, or maybe she even died. And she was a quaint little thing. But when she was young, she had these hysterical attacks, or she was angry or whatever. And she would punish me, and whatever she did to me that made me feel little, made me feel alone, made me feel afraid. But as the years passed on, I became more grateful to her and caring about her. And she was a very nice little old lady. So how am I going to write to this nice little old lady who now has Alzheimer's or is ill or has died what my experiences were? So most people stop here. I can't do that. She's not like that anymore. But those thoughts are the very basis of your personality, and they're still working on you. So you have to take yourself back. If you're going to write a farewell letter to somebody that you've known all your life, like a parent, and let me just pause there and jump over. If you're writing to a lover or wife or husband, it's usually a repetition of mom and dad, unless you've cleared that out first. So you're writing to the source of a lot of your problems, a lot of your pain, a lot of your unresolved attitudes about yourself. So you have to go back there and say as it was. So you have to regress. This is where all the primal therapy came in handy for me. You have to go back to the original state and remember. And I use photographs. I ask them to bring, baby pictures of being a child. And you have to be able to see and establish a communion with that child. Go back there and feel what you didn't feel, what you started to feel again. And say, Mommy, I really missed you. Why are you doing this to me? Here's, 50-year-old person writing this. But you have to go back and redeem all those moments. And I wish you had been there. Or, Daddy, why did you leave home? Why are you beating Mommy up? These things that become impressed in us. Why did you hit the dog? Why didn't you like animals? Or why did you kill the horse? I mean, things like this, everything is retained in our minds when we are children. So we have to go back and look at all of that with loophole and put that in a letter. And then you've got to also be convinced, if you want ego death, you have to be convinced, I'm going to do this and I'm going to attain it. I'm not going to stop short, so I'm not going to write any continuation. Oh, my beloved, I will see you in the other side. I will see you in another lifetime. I will come back. I will always love you. BS. No, this lifetime is this lifetime. It is complete, this moment. So you don't prolong. You always begin the letter by saying, this is my farewell letter. To write a farewell letter, usually people go through 20 versions of it with a group that listens to the story and says, oh, that doesn't ring true, or you skipped over that, or that's BS. And they give you hints as to what you have to redo. You redo the letter again. So by the time you get to the last letter, you're like, cried out, washed out, and that's finished. Then you seal it and you go to the next. Many times we write them simultaneously. And it's the big part of the process, because where there is mommy, there's also sister, there's also auntie, there's also perhaps my mate, perhaps my superior at work, that remind me of these engrams, of these wounds that the person has had and is alive in them. So when you go back there, it's like you rescue it, you bring light to it, you embrace it, you embrace a wound, and your love will heal it, and you will heal yourself. You will forgive yourself. Tami, I've been doing this for so many years, and I was doing it in Brazil as well. You have no idea of the people we have processed. Some of them have murdered people. Some have been in jail. Really very selfish, ugly acts. And you have to come to forgive yourself. Otherwise, you cannot join and see and understand and fuse with that spirit, soul, self that is wanting to fuse with you so that it can give the best in your lifetime. It's your life purpose.
How do you help people who need to sort of turn up the love and acceptance when they're going back into these stories and seeing how they acted or dismissed or hurt someone else?
Well, that love begins from day one. Our processes are always based on the heart, based on, I say we're all crybabies. It's one of the inhibitions which is lost immediately. I mean, we've just done this group a week ago of intellectuals and university professors and CEOs from all over the world, from including Africa, India, or there were 16 or 19 countries represented. And they were all crying. How we did it, beautiful processes, music, each one of us, beginning by me and all my team, we've got to be one. And we've got to be with an open heart ourselves, because it is through yourself that you emit to the other. It's not the exercise you do. It's the quality that you irradiate that makes a difference in the world. This is why no matter what they do, when the people leave here, they will begin to be little stars that will sparkle love in other people. And that's where it begins, and that's where it ends.
In both the beginning of your Inner Alchemy book and the Emergence of Consciousness book, you introduce a practice. You call it the master practice, the alchemical alignment practice. And to be honest with you, Zulma, it's interesting to me. I'd never encountered this practice before in any of my reading or work, it sounds true. And I found it extraordinarily opening and helpful. And I'd love if you could introduce it to our listeners and maybe even, if possible, give us a taste of it.
All right, I'll try. I use music a lot as a background. We don't have any background here except silence, which is pretty good. So let me see. Okay, first of all, I'm going to pretend that you're a student. Close your eyes and go inside your physical body. It's like pulling in all the little antennae that you have positioned outside of your body into the room and pull them in and bring your awareness totally into the weight and density of your body. We're going to call your body the temple. It's where you will always come back to. It is what gives you a definition. It is what gives you a space to call your own. And it is your laboratory as well as your temple, your church. So feel the weight and density of your body and breathe. Now, when I introduced this practice, we've already had several breathing training sessions, and the breathing should be deep, filling up the entire body without retention, and a big circular breathing, exhaling. First, primary attention into the body, everything, all energies, all that you have known, past, present, and possible future are contained inside the experience of the body. Don't think the body, be in it. Feel as if you are the body and you're inside the body. Now, when you're feeling this breathing and feeling the body, which takes a lot longer than I'm doing it here, you connect with a mirror image below you. So you imagine that you're sitting or standing, however you are, with a mirror, on top of a mirror. And that mirror is reflecting your physical body, only in the universe, obviously. And we're going to postulate that it is three-dimensional. So it's not just a reflection flat. It goes all the way down to the same space that your physical body occupies above. Your body of light, we shall call it, occupies the roots. These are your roots in light. Now you're going to bring up your sensitivity, which we've been developing for the past few modules, few days, to this contact with the light. You've got to refine your awareness. Everything we do is sensitivity and refinement of awareness, of consciousness. Feel the contact with that figure of light at your feet. It's like buzzing electricity. Feel it. Now breathe with it. Extend your breathing down. In breathing fully, going all the way down, like looping, like a ellipse, going down, looping with the figure of light and coming back up again. And as you breathe in, you bring in that light, that electricity, in through the pores, in through your feet or the base of your spine if you're sitting cross-legged. You bring it into your body. You bring that light from the roots into your physical body, and your body and this figure of light become one sensation, one extension. You breathe in the light from that figure of light, and you breathe out all that you don't want. Your desires, your worries, your discomforts, physical discomforts, you just breathe them out into this figure of light, which is like a tree, like the roots of a tree. And it will discharge it into the earth where it will be transmuted. So you just have that image in mind. We use a lot of imagery and a lot of imagination, and make that imagination real in your experience. For the moment, it is imagined. Later, it will become more and more real to you. Okay, so you're now one with this figure of light. And your physical body begins to become more electrical as you're connected to these roots of light. You begin to feel your physical body, and you begin to discern that there is the weight and density, but there's also another sensitivity, and that is electrical, and it's much lighter, and it extends even beyond the skin. And as you connect with this, you're going to be connecting also, next stage, connecting above your head. You're going to imagine now, way up above, that there is this wonderful sun. We're going to call it an electronic sun. It's all the way in the distance. And I could say it's like 3 meters high or whatever it is in feet. And this is not actual or real distance because we're all working on an inner plane here, which I'm not going to describe right now. Okay, so you take your vision, your imagination, your eye, your focus of attention without turning your eyes. It is not your physical eyes. You imagine going up, 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 up through the head, up through a beam of light. And you're going to imagine touching that electrical sun. And all of a sudden, imagine yourself going inside that electrical presence, sun presence. And your whole panorama opens up. It's like being in an immensity of light without borders. There is no end to this light. Have that experience for a few moments. Okay, now come back down again and imagine that you're back in your body, or bring yourself back in your body from where you never left. And in your body, you're going to feel, I'm going very, very quickly here, hoping you will be able to reproduce it at home or listen to this interview again. You're going to contrast your experience of being with the figure of light and being in that electrical sun presence above you. You're going to be aligned. You will be receiving from this electrical sun presence. You're receiving through your head, pouring down into your body, this grace. We're calling it cosmic light substance, cosmic nourishment for your nerves, your intelligence. Is all multidimensional stuff that you don't understand quite yet, but we're feeding into later lessons. And you're also extracting from the earth through your breath the vitality that is coming up from your roots and feeding and nourishing the cells, that part of you that is matter, that part of your body that is composed of matter. Because one of the first things we say on the first night is you have a body of matter, but your soul is not of matter. So you belong both to the universe of light, and you are in partnership with a little piece of earth that has been loaned to you. And it depends on you, how you return it and how you treat it, how you treat this planet. So you are both, from both ends, you're receiving constant nourishment. This is the alchemical alignment. Now, there's one final step that I evoke in people. From that sun presence above, there's a shower of light. Well, there's an explosion of light in all directions. That is not directional, but there is one curtain of light that comes around your physical body and extends all around your aura. It's like a light, like a tube of light, like one of those laboratory tubes. And it's transparent light, like shower curtains around you. Feel that grace, little by little, induce the sensitivity in you. This sometimes takes a while. Not everybody is open or that sensitive, that can evoke sensitivity through an imagined call. But this rain that falls over you is what we call your protective shield. And in time, you can just retreat yourself there and feel loved, feel safe, feel light, feel like you've come home. And it's your place. It's your sacred space inside your temple. Now, this sets the foundation for all further work that we do in the School of Inner Alchemy, the School of Consciousness, which is for multidimensional exploration, different types of mind, understanding yourself, understanding others, protection, blessing. It all stems from these two receptors, from the earth and from the heavens, that you have in you and which feed all your faculties, which are meant to be in service. All of us are meant to be in some form of service or another. When we awaken to that, we begin our real life. So, in a nutshell, I hope this was enough for the moment.
Extraordinary and very, very helpful.
Now, there is a much better conduction of this in YouTube, in my channel in YouTube.
There's a visually animated one. I have to say, I loved hearing you teach it in silence and just hearing you in real time like that. I found it extraordinarily helpful. And I'm glad at this point in our conversation, we had this experience, because I think a lot of times if somebody goes to address their personality or write farewell letters, they're not coming from that connectivity with heavenly light and earth rootedness. And it makes such a difference. And I wonder if you can talk about that, how we make sure we bring that kind of energy into going into our pain. Because a lot of people go into their pain and they spin around in it. It doesn't reach any kind of clarification the way you're describing.
Oh, bless you, Tami. I'm so grateful that you understand. Usually one has to explain all of this stuff. Yes, you cannot come from the personality to beat up the personality or to give it lessons in morality or anything like that. It comes from another place, and that place is inside of you. And this is where we begin to connect with our heart, our deepest innermost feeling, which is like a sun. And that is what we are. But nobody knows this. And nobody, do you know what? Nobody really loves themselves. If they love what they think they might become in how they dress or what they appear or whatever, but nobody really loves themselves. And this is where it begins. If you don't love and honor that light in you and the earth, all your ancestors that have gone into constructing these cells, which tell a story and give you the equipment to be in this earth and do your job with the earth's elements to raise it. It is so humbling when you begin to look at yourself this way that you cannot not love it. And of course, you're going to make mistakes. But are you going to, if you have a child, are you going to beat it up each time it makes a mistake? No. You're going to teach it with love and even laughter. Oh, you silly kid. Come on now. Laugh at yourself. Look at what you just did. Do you really believe that? Etc. Taking the human, the natural approach. I think this is one of the virtues that I have of having been born a Latino. I have no constrictions. I hug people. I cry. I'm very emotional. And I do this everywhere I go. In the beginning, when I was in England, people used to go, but everybody, even the French, are held under this naturalness of myself, my people, the people I train. You can't work in any other way because this is the goal of life. This is the goal of life, to bring a smile, to bring a ray of sunshine, which is theirs anyway. And you have to keep reminding them and reminding them and reminding them and reminding them.
You mentioned the heart as a sun, and that really gets my attention. And in the alchemical alignment practice, there's ascending energy. We're breathing in light from below the earth. And there's descending energy. We have this big ball of light up above us. And now we have the heart as a sun. And I'd love to hear more from you, Zulma, about how you experience, this is really important to me actually, ascending and descending energy and the place of meeting. Is it a place of meeting, or how do you see it at the heart?
Okay, yeah, I skipped over that. I said I was doing it very quickly. When we first connect with the figure of light, you're breathing in from it into your body. You're connecting with that, and this actually is healing. It heals the cells whenever there's pain or whatever it is. This is one way of embracing it and dissolving it. Now, that's not the only in-breathing that you do. You do the out-breathing to let go of the dross, of the things pertaining to the three lower bodies, the mental, emotional, and physical. Then when we connect with the upstairs, we are also breathing from there. We breathe in the cosmic light and take it all the way down through the center of the spinal column and let it go out into, this is one of my favorite descriptions, into all the tributaries, all the nervous system. And you visualize it gold, pale gold. And this strengthens the nervous system, which comes under another law. We're actually the law of matter and the law of light. One is polarity and the other one is unity. And we're breathing from both directions. The last stage is breathing in from both directions and breathing out, expansion. In the beginning, you breathe from below, throw down. The second stage, you breathe from above, fill in. The third stage, you breathe in from both directions, and it just keeps passing. You just breathe in, light, and oxygen is light for the body. So it's got to be breath, full breath. Then you breathe out into the fullness of yourself, of your bodies. Now, there's a main station in the body, which is the heart. The heart is what meets the upper and the lower. And this is like in all traditions, the Sacred Heart of Jesus, the threefold flame, the Trimurti, the diamond heart, whatever tradition you follow, is the center of the human activity. It's the center of compassion. It's where we become human, where the personality understands or transmits, comes in contact with the soul self, the light of the soul self. And this is what holds the energy in the body. We've got other places, the base chakra. Oh my God, the base, we have to work a lot on that. There is so much fear. There's so much anger. There's so much shame, but billions of humanity's pain locked up in there, not just one person's. So we have to work a lot on that to remind people this is a holy space. This is a holy place in your body. And then, of course, the third eye, which has become so misused, especially in current times. There's another sun there, but it's different because it's projecting all the time, all the things that you want. So people go around actually with a projection like this, like a penis, all like this, projecting all their ideas. And I'm in my third eye, no, you're not. To be in your third eye, you need to be here first. And then you go from the inside and connect with all the inner centers. You see, it's a 5-year training. It's 3 basic years, but it's a 5-year training because people have to practice it, and they have to practice it with someone giving them a hand, not just abstract. Come with me. I'll walk with you. Take my hand. And that's what we do. And that's what we teach people to do for one another.
And when you said we have to be here first, you pointed to your heart for those who are listening to the conversation to make sure that they heard that. And I think one of the reasons it was so important for me that you introduce us to this practice that you call the master practice and the way that you teach people is when you were talking about writing the farewell letters and how we have to touch the pain of our lives. I thought, wow, I hope people don't re-traumatize themselves in any way, like going back into pain. And yet, if we're starting with this radiant sun, it makes such a difference. And I want to just really connect that for people. How do we make sure we're bringing in, and I'm kind of going over this because I just think it's so important, that radiant sun force into touching our pain?
Well, it begins with little practices, which are building up. I always begin from a little bit to a lot, where you're communing with this, you're sensing it much more, you're feeling it with you, until this becomes so present for you. Let me put it this way. When you first contact that inner light, Tami, it's like you contact love and being loved for the very first time. There is no human love to compare with that experience. When you connect with your spirit, soul, self. In the beginning, it's like, oh, it's there. It's different. But when it lands, when it loves you, when you feel loved, when you know that you are loved, this is the next stage. But in the beginning, you feel loved. It's pouring down on you. It is devastating. We go around saying we want to be loved. We're not loved. Can we take it? The answer is no. We can only take it in small dosages. in small symbolic gestures from one another. And thank God for that. But when you feel the full force of spirit, it is devastating. It's like you were never loved by your father or your mother. There's just no earthly love that can compare to meeting that, feeling that with you, feeling that guardianship, that innermost self, which again, I say in the beginning, the words innermost self have no meaning because you have to see it outside. You're not worthy, remember, in the beginning. So it's got to come from outside. God over there loves me. It's not me who loves me. But when you begin with the practices, when we keep approaching people closer and closer and closer, until, and when you read the book, Emergence of Consciousness, about this death process, and you see what people say, and this is a very, very intense process of you going back in there, but we are holding each person. We know what we're doing, and we're doing it in love and sistership, brothership, whatever you want to call it. I see them all as my kids because I'm much older, but it's that kind of relationship of motherhood, fatherhood, of embracing. And they do touch on their traumas. But unlike most trauma therapists, we have been through our own trauma. We have been to the bottom, each one of the trainees, each one of the tutors, each one of my teachers. And once you've been there, you can be there for another. You don't rely on pills or on methods that tell you can do this much today, the next session you do the other. It's not that. You don't take a drug. You just love. But it takes time, Tami. Time. You can't do this because you know it. This is another vice that we have as humanity. We understand things and we therefore think we've done them. Now the body has got to catch up. The whole physical experience, your emotions have got to catch up. You've got to forgive some unforgivable event. You have got to be to the other side. Well, I will not forgive. I hate such and such and such and such a thing. And you're just, I could kill. And what this is really good. Once you admit that you could kill it, then of course you won't, you haven't. And then you go through that, and just underneath that are the tears. Because you can't do that. You're helpless. And underneath the tears, and we have to be there as long as it takes them to get to the other side without them fomenting more images to keep them crying, which is another vice that we have to encounter. Keep them focused on going beyond. Keep them focused on their spirit, soul, self, watching. Then on the other side of those tears, then comes a period, then comes a peace. Then comes the emptiness, and then comes the light. In that order, which may take weeks.
Zulma, one thing I want to do at this point is circle back to the beginning of our conversation and make a connection. You talked about how with your family, they were expressing their commitment to service by helping disembodied beings who I'm presuming hadn't crossed over in some way, who were stuck or needed help. And I wanted to understand more about that sense of, I think most of us think of being of service as something we're doing here in the physical plane for other physical beings. But in your family and the situation in which you were raised, you were being of service to disembodied beings. And I wonder if you can explain that.
Well, these disembodied beings, when they have not crossed over, and you use the correct term, is they pollute our environment with pain, with depression, with suffering. They go cling to somebody that feels like them because like attracts like. So a lot of pollution, a lot of mental illness, a lot of crime and perversion, especially that we have today, is accounted by disembodied spirits affecting others, attracting like, attracts like. Now, if we begin to clear the astral, which is called the lower astral plane, of these entities, and we send them home, and we didn't do the therapy there. We sent them to a team who was working on the other side, doing what we do down here with live people. They will take them to, they're called hospitals or chambers or whatever it is, where they will begin de-traumatizing them, because they're still in trauma. It's a very popular word today, trauma. It wasn't used when I started off teaching. Now there's trauma specialists, this and that. But there are traumatic experiences. Life is a series of traumatic experiences. And people die at different stages of it, and they don't know that they've died. There's no education on death, which is why this book, I feel, is so incredibly important. Because it goes from what happens when you embody, what happens when you disembody, and it begins by your own self, clearing yourself. And if you make that connection, you will be instructed. You are your own teacher. That is your own teacher, your inner self, your higher self, your I am presence, your spirit soul self.
I just have one final question for you, Zulma.
Yes.
You write in Emergence of Consciousness that humanity is preparing itself for group consciousness.
Oh, yes.
We're not just here working on our own quote unquote individual emergence, but for some type of group consciousness. And I wanted to hear more about that.
Okay, well, this is written by Alice Bailey. I mean, many people who've read the Theosophical, or Alice Bailey itself, knows that she foresaw that. So did Helena Roerich and Nicholas Roerich, etc., the masters of the early 20th century. The group consciousness is created when every individual in a group can stand on their own 2 feet, when they are whole, when you are whole and not leaning on somebody, when you can have, there's no argument. When people are in the heart, there is no argument possible. It's not that you have it your way and I respect your way and I have it my way, you respect my way. This is what is said at this level of nonsense. If you are in your heart and I am in my heart, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what you see, what I see, my way, your way, because it is another intelligence that takes forth. And that is the collective one. That is the transcendental. That is the third point that we want to achieve when we're in any kind of connection with another person, in any kind of relationship. And when that relationship extends itself, this is what I'm trying for with my teachers who surround us, and we're not there yet. We're not there yet. Trying to reach that consensus that comes from love and embraces our differences without making a polemic out of it. This group consciousness is where we need to get to socially, politically, economically. And this is where our students, hopefully, this time we have a really fair representation of all the métiers and countries in the world. Hopefully we'll get to and go back to their countries and take this spirit with them. One of the things we want to reach also is many of the associations where the people who've invested in our school have also philanthropic associations. We want to go out into the world and reach them as well. And the kids in school, the mothers, God knows how much that is needed. It's almost, I'm talking about a different world when we look around politically today. But in any event, this is where we're going. I'm not putting any doubt.
Any final words, Zulma, as we conclude, especially about your new book and the impact you hope it will have?
Well, I am very excited about it. And I hope it will teach people what it is, what life is about and what life can be. Because we think that in ego death, as in death, we lose something. We don't. And this will have us look at the nature of our attachments. This will have us look at the nature of our selfishness and to look beyond that into a world that is so rich and beautiful and coexisting with this one, but this one is so dense. It's clouding everything up. I hope it will give insight into that. I can't have final words on the entire book. It's an experience, which I hope people will take seriously. And it's not, I don't think it's a book for everybody. It would be silly of me to think that. You have to have a certain education, intellectual ability, and certain experience, life experience, to be able to become your own teacher and to take yourself seriously and to take yourself, and I'm pointing upstairs, seriously. But it begins with the heart. It begins with sensitivity to everything, beginning by your body. Looking at the way we believe, going through that maze of beliefs that we've inherited and we buy. And it's like, crossing everything we see and everything we do. It's devoiding ourselves of all this artifice into a very humble ego death, in touch with your soul, in touch with the spirit force. And until you get to the spirit force, I can't say this again and again enough because it sounds simplistic. You can base yourself on whatever religious practice you've had. For me, I was brought up as a Catholic, as a Christian, and my connection with Jesus and with Mary was really, really important. Afterwards, I went into Buddhism, and my connection with the philosophy of Buddhism and the whole principle of everything being inside was also very important. Whatever beliefs give you this joy, this peace, this light, find solace in them, use them, and go deeper. But go deeper and bring that inside. Bring that inside of you in simple language. In the simple languages, all religions talk about the same thing. Taking you back home, which is back to the heart, which is not even, it's a life that you can lead in here on this earth. And this is why the ego death.
I've been speaking with Zulma Reyo, the founder of the Zulma Reyo School of Consciousness and author of the new book, Emergence of Consciousness, Death of the Ego, and a previous important and very thorough book, Inner Alchemy, The Path of Mastery. Zulma, it's been such a joy feeling you impact this conversation in such a powerful way. I notice my heart just feels absolutely radiant, and I'm so happy to be with you like this. Thank you so much.
Thank you for making this possible, Tami.
And if you'd like to watch Insights at the Edge on video and participate in the after-show Q&A session with our guests, come join us on Sounds True 1, a new membership community featuring award-winning original shows, live classes, community learning, guided meditations, and more with the leading wisdom teachers of our time. Use promo code PODCAST to get your first month free. You can learn more at join.soundstrue.com. Sounds True, waking up the world.